Right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is round 6 of my panel discussions for Cincinnati City Council candidates. And I'm super excited to have K.A. Hurd, Tara Powell, and Jackie Frondorf joining me tonight. I am truly honored. Brian Gary will hopefully be on as well. He did have something come up, but these are very free-flowing, not informal events. So, candidates who are here tonight and any candidates in the future, you can come and go as you need to. We have real lives and families to take care of, and that is perfectly okay. Just to lay some ground rules, as always, respect is number one. Disagreements may happen, but these are not debates. We're not necessarily trying to change anyone's opinions here. We're just trying to educate folks on our positions and platforms, answer questions that the public may have, and do so respectfully and in an uplifting and encouraging manner. Folks who are watching, you're welcome to ask questions via the Q&A. We highly encourage that, actually. Questions from viewers will be prioritized. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So how I typically do introductions is we'll do a little kind of like popcorn style. So we'll each kind of throw it to one another at random. So if each of you could take some time to introduce yourself, maybe give us a little bit of a historical background and why you're running for city council, and then maybe end it with a fun fact about yourself. I think sometimes it's hard to remember that we're all human, and there's fun, lighthearted things to share about ourselves as well. So I think that's important for people to know too. Reminds people that we are in fact human. So I'll start by passing the baton to Ms. Frondorf. I'd love to hear more about you.
Yes, my name is Jackie Frondorf. I live in the neighborhood of Westwood with my family, my husband, and our 5 children. We have an 11-year-old, 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and 2-year-old. Don't ask me their birthdays because I'll get all confused. But yeah, so neighborhood, the neighborhood of Westwood to us is our home. We've lived here for over a decade, and my husband grew up in Westwood. He's lived here his entire life, and we have really been champions for helping, being citizens that have helped turn Westwood around and bring to Westwood things that the neighborhood was lacking. We did not have a space to congregate. We did not have a good playground. We did not have, the streets were so unsafe. So between my husband and I, we've really been champions for helping Westwood grow. My husband and I also started those Cincinnati neighborhood games, which is so much fun. We have since passed the baton on to new leadership, but that was so much fun to get started here in the city. And then also the Cincinnati Flags Project. That was a really fun initiative where we went out to different neighborhoods, all the neighborhoods, and got input from the neighbors, and they drew their own little pictures to decide what they wanted their neighborhood flag to be. So that was a lot of fun. And then, so the reason I'm running is because, to me, as a young mother, I feel like I see the city in a different perspective. I see the needs from a mother's point of view, which is sometimes lost. Women, especially young mothers, feel pushed out of the workforce because of the high, cost of childcare. They feel pushed out of society almost because it's not really built for them. It's not built for small children. And I want to change that, because if we can make our city work for families, young families, then we can bring our population back up, get more people to move to the city, and having more people move into the city gives us more tax revenue to play with, to do all the special, amazing things that we want to do as council members. So let's see, fun facts about myself. I love art. I love to paint. I love to do all art. And I am a amateur fossil collector. I love fossils. Okay, so I'm gonna pass it on. Let's move on to Tiara.
Don't pick me, Jackie. So about me. So my name is Tierra Powell. I grew up in East Westwood. I currently live in Price Hill, but I am moving over to Spring Grove Village. I have a 15-year-old who will be a sophomore at St. Ursula tomorrow.
Oh, they start tomorrow?
They do.
Oh my gosh.
And a couple different things just about me is I've always been a champion for East Westwood. I grew up there, and part of that and me giving back is because there were people who gave to me. I think one thing that our city lacks is we don't have a lot of mentorship programs. We don't see a lot of people giving back to the communities that they came up in. We didn't have a lot, if anybody knows where East Westwood is, we kind of like one big old circle of a neighborhood. We weren't exposed to a lot initially through our rec center and through Rodney Christian. We were able to link up with people from Knox Presbyterian. Some of us had never even been to Hyde Park in our life. We went out to trips to see people who were judges and just to see people doing stuff outside of our community. And so I always felt like once I made it, I feel like I'm in a good place. I feel like it's my duty to give back to those kids so they can have somebody to say, hey, she's from here. It's possible to do that. Outside of me being a trustee for East Westwood, I'm also a landlord. I currently rent and dedicate my properties to felons. I know that a lot of candidates have affordable housing as their platform, but for me, inclusive housing is important too, because a lot of them don't have many options as to where they can go. I'm also a small business owner. I own T&D's Party Room on Harrison and Cheviot. And so I know the struggle of having a small business here. And we did not get any of the grant money from all this money that was passed out. So I know that there's a lot of small business struggling. So I'm definitely a champion for small businesses. And like Jackie said, the city does not have great representation when it comes to mothers, small business owners, and just people with diverse backgrounds. So that's part of my reason is to represent or give the people who have been underrepresented representation at City Hall. Oh, and a fun fact. What
is it?
I played tuba in high school and I was always short, so I had to sit on textbooks. And there are a bunch of people that went to Walnut that can verify that. And they still tease me about it to this day, but that's a fun fact.
That's awesome.
Kay, I guess you next.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever is watching, I am K. Jr. And it's an honor to be by the women, the future women of council. And I'm from Westwood, first off, love, been born and raised here on the west side. I believe all of us is on the west side right now, but it's a lovely part. I want to bring unity now. Definitely want to bring unity to our city, to our community. Make sure that we are involved. Not only just agreeing on everything. Of course, we're gonna have disagreements, but just like Stacey said in the beginning, being respectful about it. We don't have to agree on everything, on every policy. Let's try to find a common mean. If we can't, all right, let's try to see what we can find a common mean to. Let's build together. I want to make sure that we are holding hands, showing love, and caring for each and every individual that is in here in Cincinnati. Other than that, went to West High, grade school, went to Gamble. So I did a lot of things on the West Side. Went to University of Cincinnati and later transferred up to Toledo for business administration. I didn't finish. I'm not even going, I'm not perfect.
So rocket too.
But I'm trying. I'm just trying to make a difference inside the community, inside the city, and whatever happens. We still gonna keep on grinding and doing what we can. And fun fact is, I wear a size 15 shoe or 14 shoe, and also I'm a DJ, so we're gonna have to get it rocking regardless.
I've always thought it would be like super fun to be a DJ. Like that's something that I considered possibly doing as like a side gig at some point. Obviously have not pursued that, but it sounds, no pun intended, it sounds super fun. Well, my name's Stacey Smith, and again, I'm just really thankful for the candidates joining me tonight. I decided to run for city council in November. I think it was right after the presidential election. And I think that kind of that did start me thinking about local politics. Because I was like, on a national level, I can't really do much, but what about locally? What's going on here in Cincinnati? And as I was thinking about that, I was also reflecting on my own frustrations as a mental health therapist, how, especially in our underserved communities, when it comes to trying to take care of people's mental health needs, there are so many roadblocks that make that impossible. And I'm not even going to say that, it's harder or it's more challenging. It's impossible. I've said time and time again, I can't treat a child's PTSD if they continue to live in a neighborhood that experiences gun violence, or if they continue to live in a home that doesn't have enough food, or if they continue to live in a single parent home where domestic violence occurs. It's just not going to happen. So I thought the most productive thing to do when it comes to therapy and helping with people's mental health would be to run for office and make sure that we are focusing on mental health needs. And, throughout the process, I've heard a lot of people agreeing, like, yeah, we need to bring mental health to the table and things like that. And obviously, I agree when we're talking about issues like crime, poverty, both of which are causes and symptoms of various mental health concerns. When we're presenting solutions or coming up with ideas, if things to improve people's mental health care access is not a part of that conversation, it's an incomplete conversation. So I hope to add a missing piece to the puzzle, whether or not I'm elected. And that's kind of what's brought me here today. A fun fact about me is that, okay, I'm a huge fan of The Lion King. Lions are my favorite animal. And because of that, a lot of people have gifted me Lion King socks. And I literally only own Lion King socks. So on any given day, if I'm wearing closed-toed shoes, you can come up to me and ask, hey, what character are you wearing today? And I can tell you, oh, today it's Pumbaa, or today I have Rafiki on my socks or whatever. It's just, that's how it happened. I have not had to buy socks in years because people just are always gifting me Lion King socks. And I don't know where they find them because I've never seen them in stores. It's just, I just don't understand, but it's hilarious and I love it.
That is fun.
All right. So jumping right in, I'm really excited to explore this topic because I could be wrong about this. And if I am, anyone is welcome to correct me. I feel like I might be the only female candidate who's not a mother that's running for Cincinnati City Council. So, while I have nieces and nephews and I work with children, that's not a part of my life that I necessarily, fully understand like other candidates who are mothers. So I'm really excited to learn more about this as well. Jackie, would you kind of like to introduce the topic and maybe get us started in that conversation?
Sure. Like I said, I live with my husband, but there's tons of single moms out there that I don't know how they do it, and we need to figure out a way to support them more because of the 300,000 residents in the city, 200,000 identify as a mother, a father, or a child. So 2/3 of our 300,000 residents identify as a mother, father, or child. Then those 200,000 mother, father, or children live in 62,000 households. So you break that you take those 200,000 people and they live in, you can break them out into 62,000 households. There's 62,000 households in Cincinnati that have any combination of mother, father, and child. Of those 62,000, 25,000, not half, but almost half, 25,000 are single mother households. So it's a huge number. And my husband and I, we can not, once we had our third child, paying for quality childcare, we couldn't do it. It was out of the question. So I had to step, as the woman who made less to begin with, I made the decision to step down from my career, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I've been a stay-at-home mom for almost a decade. And I, I'm the PTA president at my kids' school, and so I hear stories from fellow moms, fellow parents at our school about transportation needs and needs that I wouldn't even think about in my life because I don't experience that. But how difficult it is for them as single mothers or mothers with that they're trying to work a dual income job and being on the bus for hours at a time just to get to a job that's barely, across the city, somewhere I could get to in 25 minutes with my car. They're on the bus for 3 hours a day trying to get to it. And that's dumb. Like, we have to change that. And if a family if it's a single mother and she wants to go have a great job to support her family, she finds the perfect job across town, but it's not on a bus line. We have to figure out a way to change that. We have to support mothers better in our city. And not only that, not only the affordable childcare piece, which is huge, but like I said before, having things in place in neighborhoods that make it better for mothers to raise their children happily, safely, all of those things. Because when a mother feels stressed, 100% of that stress gets transferred to her child. I grew up in a really, really bad childhood. I had a mother who's a drug addict and a father who was an alcoholic, and we were very poor. We lived in the middle of nowhere. It was hard. So I'm sure you're familiar with ACEs. I have an ACEs score of 10. My husband has an ACEs score of 0. It is very, and the one thing with ACEs that I've read on is that if there's at least one, obviously more is better, but if there's at least one supportive person in that child's life, whether it be a mentor or a teacher or a fellow family member, that can just make such a huge difference in that child's life and can really change the trajectory of where they end up and how their life ends up, and can break the cycle of stopping that same repetitive behavior. So like you were saying, we need to bring in better services for mental health, and not only for the youth, but for the parents too, if they need it. Because like I said, if a mother feels stressed, if she doesn't know how she's going to get food on the table, if she doesn't know where they're going to be staying, if she doesn't know how she's going to get groceries, all of those things are going to affect the mental status of the mother, and then obviously affect the mental status of the child. So making sure that each neighborhood has a grocery store to buy healthy food is imperative. We have many, many food deserts across the city, and that is just unacceptable. More resources given to mentorship programs so that they can have more people on staff, so that they can have more volunteers to be able to do the job and service all the youth that need service. So yes, there's a lot of facets to it, but being a mom's hard. It's really, really hard. And giving our neighborhoods, parks, walking paths, more benches, put benches at the bus stops. I mean, this is something ridiculous. Like we try to ride the bus and we'll take it downtown, but I'm like trying to hold all my kids' hands really tightly so no one, if I could sit them down on a darn bench, it's infuriating. So there's a lot of ways that our city can work better for moms, and it's about alleviating stress in their lives and giving them the tools they need to be on top of their game, and then supporting the youth when the unfortunate circumstance happens that the child lives in an area where you can't get rid of all of those stressors, but at least you can mitigate it with having a supportive person in that child's life as far as a mentorship or something.
No, completely agreed. And I think there's probably a lot of different things that we can do to address this problem in both a leadership role and not a leadership role. I think there's plenty of things that we can be doing. So let's ponder on some of those. Tiara, KA, are there any things that stick out to you as far as when talking about young mothers, single mothers, families, children, what would be some ideas that you have to bring to the city to make things better for these families?
I'll jump in real quick. So at the rec center on McHenry, we have a lot of children that come from single family homes. So mostly single mothers, but we also have some single fathers. I think the city needs to do a better job of kind of what Jackie said in regards to the bus stops. We have a lot of bus stops that are busy, that don't have benches, that do need it, and that does help parents. Even the parents that have kids in strollers, it's waiting for a bus, your feet will hurt, and you get agitated, and that's a big deal. I think
with groceries, I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and with groceries, which is funny because growing up on McHenry, we did have Kroger's at Harrison and McHenry, and my mom didn't start driving until a couple years ago. So we used to literally walk up the street from McHenry up to Kroger's, and then get our groceries and either catch the bus back or a cab, depending on how much we had. But with that, even, I think the city needs to do a better job of the process when it comes to crosswalks. I keep bringing this up at plenty of meetings. People, they're like, oh, you can talk to adults about getting a crosswalk, but the process is so crazy. We had somebody tell us that there hadn't been any accidents or documented accidents, so they really weren't trying to put a crosswalk by the rec center. And being in the community, I think that they need to listen to the community councils and leaders, because although a child has not been hit there in a while, we're there with the ooh and the ah as soon as we hear screeches. So although a child has not been hit, we have so many instances weekly where they have always been. So I think that's one thing.
Let's prevent that from happening instead of putting a crosswalk in after it happens.
Yeah, and being in a lot of different spaces with campaigning, that's the complaint of a lot of communities. It's like, hey, we've asked for this crosswalk, but the engineers say there's not enough people being hit there, which we can't do that, because it should not take a child or a person, which we've seen all across the city, to be hit by a car, specifically our kids. So that's one of the big things that stuck out to me with that.
Yeah, I know you're pushing really hard for that one, and it's crazy how
it's taking too long.
You have to work so hard. Yeah. But then downtown and over the Rhine, it took, just
30 seconds.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And
people
notice that. And I think that's one thing that the city has to do a better job of, because we do notice when we put in a request and it takes months, it takes 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But downtown, where these people are generating income and they have the influence, they get things done in a matter of weeks, which is crazy.
Yeah, so I'm not a mother or a father, but I got impacted, throughout my whole life. I never met my father. I was growing up with a single mother. So with things going on, regardless of the case may be, if I was sick or anything was going on with me, my mother had to be there. Sometimes, she had to skip work. Sometimes other things, other important things had to get pushed aside. And then the same vice versa. If my mama is hurt or is sick, I have to put things aside also. So the thing is, I feel like we need to support families more. It's not just about single parents, which is very important, but there's people that have mother and father still struggling hard. And we need to make sure that we keep our eyes on them also. But single parents, that hits me hard. That hit me right here in the heart. There's a couple things that we can do. Is it going to work? It's all about trial. We have to try. The thing is, we have to try something. We can't continue going down the same road that we're going down right now. And it's very important that one thing is we delete food deserts, regardless if it's a farmer's market. I feel like council should orchestrate farmers market in each neighborhood, especially the ones that don't have grocery stores, at least once a week for a couple hours. We need to get that together. Food pantries, make sure they have enough literature that is spreading the word, because a lot of people don't know about the pantries. So we need to make sure that we spread the word about the things that we do have. Hopefully we can get more programs at rec centers, like for as when parents is at home, not at home, but at work while the kids are out of school. We need to make sure that the kids have somewhere to go. And especially this the metro thing that's going on with soda and CPS, it's not going to help our situation at all. And
that's such a stressor for parents. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's going to be a big, like we're going to be in a bigger problem than we already are. But we need to do what we can and pursue. Let's try. Whatever works. If it don't, all right, let's get out the blueprint. Let's try again. But we have to do something for our families, because not only, like I said, not only single parents, but people that have both parents, even a grandma in the household, is
Yeah.
struggling, and we need to make sure that we keep an eyesight on all of them and work together as much as possible to make sure that we get our families on their feet as much as we can.
Yeah.
I really like something that you said, KA, about like really about like hosting farmers markets more, especially in areas that like don't have easy access to grocery stores. Like, can you imagine seeing like the city of Cincinnati is hosting a farmers market in South Cumminsville Saturday at this time, and it's again, it's put on by the city, but different vendors are invited to come sell their
I'll grab
product.
something.
To yep, you do what you gotta do, Jackie. But just having the city of Cincinnati's name on something like that, like we are bringing these farmers markets to these areas. Like we're not waiting for the vendors or the neighborhoods to do it. Like we are leading that charge, and then maybe that's something that the neighborhood will then eventually adopt on their own. But I agree with all of your ideas. I think a couple other things to add to them would be, one, I think we really need to, it's hard because from a city council seat, there's not a ton that can be done in this regard, but we really need to push for, I think, the legalization and decriminalization of marijuana, because I can't tell you how many families I work with where it's a single family home because dad is in jail for a petty drug crime. Yeah. And they're being held in jail because they can't pay their bond or what have you. So there are systemic problems that lead to single family homes that should be addressed. I mean, we're in 2021, for crying out loud. So really focusing on that. I also think that there needs to be, as far as like mental health care goes, single moms and single parents and grandparents who are raising their grandchildren, I think there needs to be a lot of outreach and resources for them in that regard, especially something that could be offered in home. A lot of times when I'm doing an intake for like a younger school age child, I'll ask the mother or the guardian, you're under a lot of stress. Like, can we get some resources for you? Like, can I connect you with a therapist or something like that? And they're usually interested, but there's literally no time for them to do so. They have the kids, and therapy places don't have places for them to sit their kids or to be watched and cared for. So can we eliminate some of those barriers so that mothers and single fathers and grandparents and just guardians in general can have their own access to mental health care, while we're also trying to get increased mental health care access for children as well. Any other thoughts on what we can do for families, young mothers, single mothers, children? What other ideas do we have?
I just wanted to show you this real fast. This was, I don't know if you can see it. This is the Healthy Harvest mobile market. So they go to 12 neighborhoods right now. I mean, imagine what they could, and I went in the truck. It was so, I mean, it had so much fresh produce, and it had spices and granola and tons of healthy options for families. And so there's 12 neighborhoods on there that they go to, so Mondays is these ones, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays. Imagine what they could do if supported by city council, given $50,000 of the budget, they could buy more trucks and be in more neighborhoods. So, thinking outside of the box as far as like, I think Terry said there's already, or maybe KA, there's resources out there. And if we just support them with city council, with the budget, then I feel like we can do. I mean, there's so many passionate people in our city doing amazing work, like what you're doing in East Westwood here, and KA, what you've done in Westwood. I mean, it's so important. And then the mental health work that you're doing. I mean, Stacey, there's great people doing great work, but if we don't start putting our money where our mouth is as far as our budget and cutting out, it is so important what we've done to make our core strong. The core of Cincinnati is strong. And it's at a great place right now where I feel like we can cut the reins and be like, all right, Now let's get everyone else brought up. Let's focus on the other neighborhoods in the city that need our attention. And I feel like so much of our budget right now goes to some and a few,
Not everybody.
and not everyone. And if it's the whole equity thing, which is huge. Equity is huge to me. We need equitable neighborhood growth. If we don't have equitable neighborhood growth, we will never ever prosper as an entire city, ever. We will never eliminate crime. We will never get nothing. We will be in a cycle of no change if we do not start supporting all neighborhoods equally, not just the core, not just the ones that are kind of grandfathered in with all the special things going on. I talk about there's neighborhoods you talk about Stacey, the families that just don't have time to get help for themselves. There are neighborhoods that don't have enough residents in them that have enough disposable time to even allow themselves to be on a neighborhood council, to be able to form neighborhood groups to get stuff done. Do you think they have time to write a grant application for money from the city to do a special project in their neighborhood? No, they don't. So as a city, we have to go into those neighborhoods that don't have the people power, the people time, that they don't have that. We need to go into them and say, hey, let's come up with a plan for your neighborhood. Let's come up with ways that you want your neighborhood to be better. But have the city do the hard work, back behind hard work. Don't make the residents who are already struggling and don't have any time as it is, don't make them do it.
The city should be going to the residents, not the residents coming to the city, because that is a barrier.
And let me just jump in real quick. I think kind of what you just said with the city coming to the neighborhoods was important, because we just recently had the neighborhoods committee come to East Westwood. And I've been to some of those neighborhoods committee, and there's not a lot of people there often, but that was the most that I've seen people. So I think that it's important, and people really don't grasp the concept that not everyone drives. And yes, we have buses here. Yes, we have Ubers, but a lot of that stuff is super expensive. Like one day during the week, it can be about $40 from East Westwood to downtown, and people just don't have that disposable income to go to meetings. And just to back up with the whole grocery store thing in regards to families, people don't realize how detrimental that is to a neighborhood. We have so many residents in East Westwood, the villages of Roe Hill, English Woods, and the Fairmounts that do not have a close grocery store. That Kroger's and Save-A-Lot being gone puts a strain. We have so many, and kind of to say what Kay Hurd said, not just single families or families, but we have a lot of senior buildings where these seniors don't drive, they can't drive. And for them not to have a grocery store nearby is crazy. I think, and I know that it's a private market. I'm a landlord, so I know, but the city has to put more pressure on these developers because this developer blatantly got on, I believe it was Channel 12, and did an interview and said that he was ignoring a grocer that was interested in that spot because the plasma center was willing to come in and pay top dollar. And while we know that we're in a capitalist country or whatever, we as a city need to put pressure on these developers, because that is not okay. The city could have stepped in some way, somehow. And I know we have people working in the background on that, but that's one of the things that I think a lot of the disconnect between the everyday working people and city council is, because if they don't have a grocery store in their community, they have vehicles, multiple vehicles that they can drive to the nearest place. A lot of the residents in our city do not have that option.
Nope, completely agreed. I'm going to jump in here because some mysterious person named Brian Gary has appeared on the screen, and I want to give Brian the same opportunity that we had earlier. So Brian, if you would like to introduce yourself, maybe give a little bit of background history, why you're running, and then a fun fact about yourself to catch you up. KA's fun fact was that he wears a size 14 shoe and he's a DJ. Jackie's was that she is a amateur fossil collector. Is that how you described it?
My grandma was, I'm part of a fossil collecting group at UC, and I think
it's super cool.
I can show you my collection someday if you'd like.
Tiara played the tuba in high school and had to sit on books to be tall enough, which I completely understand. I had to do that in driver's ed as well. And I own an absurd amount of Lion King socks. They are all gifted to me. And so anytime you see me wearing closed-toed shoes, you can guarantee I'm wearing Lion King socks. So those are all of our fun facts that you now have to top So
Oh my
Brian,
God,
we
man.
will we will turn it over to you for the time being.
Okay, let's see. I guess you can hear me. Man, I really had to think about that one, but gosh, a fun fact. Okay, but other than that, we can talk about my why, and we can talk about, I guess, any other thing about me that you were mentioning. I was born and raised in Cincinnati. I was born and raised in Bond Hill. I was just are you from Bond Hill? No, Stacey?
I work in Bond Hill and have
Where
for
do
the
you
past
work?
5 years. I work at Bond Hill Academy. So
Oh, you work at the elementary school.
I adore Bond
Okay.
Hill. That's like my second
All
home.
right. Well, yeah, Bond Hill is just an amazing place. So I was born there, so that makes it even more amazing. My mom, she was actually the president of the Bond Hill Community Council, helped start the council there, and was the co-president with Russo O'Neill. That's the grandfather, in fact, of Philip O'Neill. So the O'Neill family and my family are very close. For about 50 years, we've been very close. Todd, Robert, all of the brothers. Russo, of course, was viewed as my uncle. That's Russo Jr., so Philip O'Neill's father. But at any rate, but the thing about that's important is that where you grow up, like fish or a plant in a pot, your environment can have a lot to do with who you become. There's, kind of very little separation in, the fish put in the aquarium, how big it'll get, the plant put in a pot, how big it'll get. There's a strong correlation between where you grow up and who you become. It can be. In my case, it did have a great effect on me. When I grew up, I looked to my left and to my right, and I saw Black people. When I was on a sports team, I was on many sports teams, Bond Pad, Little Red Machine. I bowled at Seymour Bowling Alley. I remember being in the bowling alley, and I was actually there was a tournament, and I was the only white person in the entire bowling alley at 11 years old. And that's sort of when I discovered that I was white, I guess, because, before that, I mean, kids are kids, you're playing with your friends. I mean, there's not like this thing that people get when they're older. But one thing I did also notice as a kid growing up in Bonds Hill is we went to the candy store at the end of the street. You had to cross over to Norwood. I grew up on Catalina and Phantom on the corner. We walk over down to Rhode Island, across the Rhode Island, then you're in Norwood. Well, the kids would throw rocks at me because I was with Black people. I got attacked by people in Norwood, and in those days, I'm not trying to disparage Norwood, but it was very racist, and they actually burnt crosses in Norwood when I was a kid. So that being said, also the police would treat a group of me and my friends, very differently than they would treat white people, and I noticed that as kids. My mom called the police. I remember, I forget what it was about, but she called the police about something. And, 6 hours later, the police came to her door. And I was standing there, and I'll never forget this, but my mom said, "You are 6 hours late." And they said, "Well, ma'am, what do you expect living in this neighborhood?" And she said, "I expect, prompt and effective police service." So what I'm saying is I learned some things growing up that other people don't learn. And the reason that people don't learn these things, they can't see things through two different lenses, because a bulk of us, Cincinnati is very segregated. So being segregated, what that means is people live in the same community based upon the color of their skin. And so most of us grow up, whether we're white or black, around people who look like us. I didn't. And for me, that's a blessing. It created who I am. Like, that's what gives me fire. That's why I do what I do. You know, honestly, I had to fight a lot as a kid, and I learned to fight really well. And people became afraid of me because I was, a good fighter. But, and I grew up and I wrestled in high school and in college and, beat a lot of people and in the martial arts. But so I learned how to fight, I guess, and that probably helps me now in terms of my strategies to fight for other people. So very briefly, and I won't go on because I don't know how, I'm a talker. I can talk a long time. I could talk for the next hour, but I'll just say that I had a rough childhood. I began to have a rough childhood. I started selling drugs when I was 11 years old. I was arrested like 10 times before I was 16 years old. When I was 16, I had a grand jury sealed indictment for my arrest. I was around people who had guns and they didn't play. I've seen 2 people murdered. You will never forget the blood pouring out of somebody's head or out of their mouth and helplessly watch them take their last breath while you're trying to tend to them. These are some of the experiences that I've had that have shaped my why. Why are you running? A big reason why I'm running is because, honestly, I don't want other kids to go through what I've gone through. I was abused as a kid, and that's really what got me into drugs, and that's what got me into criminal behavior. And that's, but here's what got me out of that. And I think that this is really important, and this should be an important part of our city. And that is one single individual who was not a professional, unpaid, somehow took notice of me and saw something in me, because everyone else, and I'm not exaggerating, everyone else gave up on me. When they did a pretrial investigation on me, they talked to your principal, your teachers, or anybody they can, and they said, he's a drug dealer, get him off the streets. So I was a throwaway kid. Like, I hate to say it, but my own family gave up on me. Like, I had no support. But this one single individual, for some reason, took notice in me and saw something in me. I hated myself. I didn't love myself, but he loved me, and he loved me back into life, and I want to be that person, but not just on that level. On the personal level, I've helped thousands. I'm not bragging. That's what I do. And that's what I've been doing for 40 years. I'm always around, kids like me and trying to help people like me, like the misfits, the throwaways, because there really are no throwaways. And in some sense, we're probably all misfits. But I'm just been very blessed to have people in my life that were like me, because it gives my life that sense of purpose, that I can actually spend my life doing what I believe that I was sent here to do. And that is to help other people. And so the whole platform of my platform is about other people. I'm talking about me, but I'm just trying to inform you of why I do what I do. Why do I try to help victims of gun violence? Why do I try to stop gun violence?
I think that's very important to be candid and to kind of show some of those darker places of your life. Jackie earlier was sharing that you know, she experienced a lot of trauma growing up as well. And I think that's,
Sorry to hear that, Jack.
I think it's important to share that with folks because it lets them see the motivator, and it lets them see like, oh, this isn't just an individual who, you know, wants power, things like that. It provides a story, which I think adds meaning to what we're all trying to do. What's a fun fact? A fun
Oh
random.
gosh,
Yes, it's time.
man, a fun fact. You know, I might need some time to think about that, but I will say that, you know, most people, couple different things. Most people don't know what I do for a living. But here, I'll take this is my shoe. Can you see my shoes?
Yeah. What's going on in the front there?
My shoe?
Yeah.
It's probably like some dirt. It's a these are work boots.
Industrial work boots. What do you do?
I work for a living with my hands. That's a fun fact. I mean, probably hardly anybody knows that. When I work, you know, I get dirt under my fingernails. I have to shower at night, you know, after work. I think that's a fun fact. I'll give you one more fun fact. I went to college for music, and I have a degree in music composition.
That's
So
No idea about that. All right,
exactly. I mean, nobody really knows this because I get, you know, I mean, you know, you get known for what you're known for, you know, and what I do, you know, primarily is to fight for the underdog and to create what I believe is justice. And nobody really knows what I do for a living or that I have a degree in music composition. So there's my fun facts, I guess, for now, till I can find a more fun one.
I started out in college as a music education major because I wanted to be a high school choir director specifically.
Awesome.
That was
I
the
love
goal
this.
growing up.
So do you
I love
sing,
to sing.
Stacey? Do you sing then?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I love to sing. I love to sing. I was in
You
choir
do?
for 16 years. Oh, I love
How
choir.
about you, Trier? You sing?
I don't sing, and please don't ask me to play the tuba.
So in college, I had to do like different pedagogy classes, which is essentially here's how you teach the instrument. You're not necessarily learning it; you're learning how to teach it.
Right.
And in the brass one, trombone was horrible. I was terrible at that. French horn, trumpet, but like tuba. I think there's something about short
Are you
people.
serious?
I think there's something about short people and tubas that go hand in hand, because tuba was the one I was really good at. It was just so random. But
That is cool.
I think Brian raises an interesting point, and it goes along with kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier in like investing in neighborhoods and youth and families, is, you know, establishing mentorship programs. What are some ways that city council at a council level, how can we support what is already in place, create new things, buffer the wheel that has already been invented, so to speak? Like, what can we do to get more mentors and programs for youth?
Oh, can I jump in on this one?
Please
No,
do.
let me jump in. No, I'm just kidding.
For that one, I think that, and this has been my fight for a while, specifically with the shooting that we recently had in East Westwood, which really pushed off everything with my campaign, which is unfortunate. But the city has to be in touch with these community councils. I think that is the biggest problem. Back to what Jackie said, there are a lot of people in the city who are doing great work, and that work would have even a bigger effect if they had the support of the city. I often talk about, we had the basketball court that we wrote grants for and had private donors in East Westwood. If the city, and it took us years to get a basketball court where we would have had the support of the city, we could have got it done in a matter of months. And things like that is the problem that I have with our current council and our previous councils, is that they don't talk to the communities. And there's amazing stuff going on at Cincinnati Urban Promise and Westwood. Abe can use tons of money because he would be able to get more mentors, have more outreach. The city just has to be a little bit more dedicated to the people that are already doing the good work. And as you say, they don't need to recreate the wheel. There's a bunch of us who know what's going on. We know the answers to our specific areas and can help put those in other areas, but the city has to be engaged with these community councils.
Yeah,
One of the
and they
things
can't,
that-
and they cannot always, the first thing cannot be, the first threat of cutting from the budget cannot be cutting the CRC centers. We must, the CRC centers, pools, I mean, those are paramount to keeping our neighborhoods safe and, you know, the youth engaged. So they need to stop being the first thing on the chopping block. And if anything, they need to be more, you know, more resources need to be poured into
they
them.
need to be defended.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
defended, not put on the chopping block.
Well,
And
they
a
should
single
be
budget.
like the permanent funding,
Yes,
um,
permanently funded.
not
Yes.
the funding that's, you know.
Fleeting every year, yes.
So yeah, they don't get a lot of money. If Casey, I mean, you probably know our budget, but no, I mean the budget like for the Youth to Work program, which comes out of the CRC, it's a very nominal amount of money. And so there are people who will tell you like, show me who you hang with and I'll tell you who you are. Have you ever heard that phrase? There's also the phrase, show me your budget and I will tell you your priorities. And so when we look at our budget, it's so amazingly descriptive of our priorities. We know that 60% of our operating budget goes to what we consider to be, or what they call like public safety. But the reality is that we know that public safety actually comes from communities that are fully resourced, that families have the resources they need to provide for their children and for themselves a healthy home, you know, and healthy food, that in fact, that's actually where safety comes from. So if we know that safety comes not from an excessively bloated public safety budget, but actually from community investment, then why aren't we spending all of our money, or at least as much as possible, pouring money into our communities, especially like the communities that you guys were mentioning earlier, you know, Moosewood, Millville, Fairmount, North and South, Cumminsville, you know, all of the areas, you know, English Woods, the Fay, the different places that we've been talking about. You know, if we're a family, you know, a real family, which, you know, you can trace back human history to Lucy, right? And we are all have the same DNA. We are actually one family, one Cincinnati. And if we are that, then why are we not treating each other like that? Why would we treat some of our family in ways that we would just let them suffer? Because we're letting the mentally ill suffer, which I know is huge for you, Stacey. We're letting the homeless suffer out on our streets. We're letting our youth suffer being murdered. I just came from a shooting scene that occurred at McDonald's. A young man was shot in the face at McDonald's next to my mom's house in Walnut Hills. And my daughter happened to see the scene on the way to my mom's house. And I'll just say, how do we do this? We pour money into where people need it. It's not about people's greed. It's about people's need. And if you look at where our money goes, it goes to people's greed. It doesn't even go to people's need, like a small percentage. And I'll just plug CCY, the Citizens Committee on Youth, was around when I was a kid. It was defunded when most of you were little kids. It was defunded like 15 years ago. You probably don't even know what CCY is. I'm just messing with you. I'm sure you probably know what CCY is, but it was a real wonderful program that was city run. if you worked for CCY and you got your check, it said the city of Cincinnati on it. That's where you got paid. It wasn't some organization. It was an actual part of our city that the people on city council at that time said, we don't value these kids' lives. You are throwing away your money. And they defunded it in 2006.
I think that's a really good point, because it highlights that people think a lot of times, I won't say people, but a lot of people seem to be of the mindset that these communities that, you know, experience the frequent violence or in high poverty. Also, there's a cat. Hello.
Hey, cat. Hey, kitty.
That they're a waste of time and money. And, you know, Brian, earlier you asked, you know, why do we continue to, you know, throw more and more money at the safety budget when the real safety comes from investing in communities? And I think part of that is people are scared to change the way that things have always been done. But the scary part is that what we've done is not working sufficiently. That's the scary part.
It doesn't work.
Exactly.
It doesn't work. If it worked, we wouldn't have more and more murders. The biggest number of murders in the history of Cincinnati happened last year, 2020. And if that's true, then what we are doing isn't working.
And it's especially not working for youth, because more and more young people are the ones that are experiencing this violence. Jackie, did you have something that you were gonna?
I have to get going. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No,
I have
that's okay.
So this was amazing. Stacey, thank you so much for doing these. It's so fantastic. And it sounds like we all have a common theme here, is that get into the neighborhoods and give them what they need. I mean, I mean, all of us have said it. It's so important. So yeah, this is great. And I'm so excited for the future of our city. So
you take care of what you need to take care of, and
thank
have a good night.
Thank you so much, you guys. All right. Bye, everyone.
But yeah, I think a couple of ideas that I've had that have come from this conversation is, you know, one, you know, I love the idea of, you know, let's not even have the CRCs be kind of like a bargain. They need to have a set amount of money that they're funded for every year. And if anything, we need to be arguing for, okay, how much are we going to increase this by? Not how much are we going to decrease this by?
You know how many of our pools are closed this year?
Oh, so many. I've driven by them and have.
I'm gonna say half of our pools.
Yep, I've been driving by some of the CRCs.
I believe
I'm like,
13
that
of our
should be
pools.
open.
13 of our pools, I believe, are closed.
And why? One of the hottest summers on record. And what can these families and children?
What are our priorities? I mean, they said they had not enough lifeguards, but are they paying them enough? Did they start early? I mean, with all due respect, I love our CRC. I love Daniel Betts, but our pool should be open. That's just the way it is. Our pool should be open. And that shows us our priorities.
KA, were you trying to jump in and say something a moment ago?
Yeah, just real quick. Far as like mentor programs and things like that, I mean, the number one thing, you can't do anything if you don't know about it. I don't know like any agency like that's primary that we can go to right now and say like, oh, let's sign up our youth for whoever may need a mentor that we can go to right now or call. We know who to call if we have an emergency. We know who to call if we need some development done. We know who to call during other circumstances, but we don't know who to really call to actually approach us professionally and actually help us get through different situations, regardless if it's our youth. Even adults may need mentors because of how they was grown up. But we don't know that number. We don't know the agency. We know that it's people around. Like me, I was growing up and I was lucky to run into some people that was my coaches, and so happened to be police officers also. So they helped me through some things, not just by being in football or in sports, regardless, but they helped me outside of that, outside of school. Even when I was going to college a little bit, everything. Like I said, I'm not a perfect child, not a perfect person. But they helped me through some things. They talked me out of some things, and that was great. But I was just fortunate to run into them gentlemen. And I'm proud that I did. And if I didn't, I don't know where I may be at this moment. I got taught some hard lessons, and I was able to get out of some lessons I didn't need to learn. I actually, was told by other people. But the people that mentored me, like I said, was my coach, even my family members. Some people that went through some things telling me like, nah, don't do that. I did that when I was younger and things like that. But we definitely need to get the word out for, as if it is an agency that does specialize in mentors. We definitely need to get that out as much as possible and touch people that don't have not educated about it. And we need to make sure that we educate them about it, because I'm sure it is a program. I mean, it might be underfunded like always. And one other thing just came to mind. Like, I'm not trying to blame nobody. I'm not trying to point fingers, but elected council is very important. I mean, we all know, but some of the people that does get elected, there's some things behind that, and it could be some corporate dollars, it could be some other things, and a lot of things that may get defunded may be funding other corporations that had donated to them guys, that has did different things to get them on seat, and they may have promised that oh yeah, I got that, and there's a lot of things that's closed doors. Like I said, I'm not trying to point out anything, but if this past council didn't show us anything, obviously this is going on in some way, shape, or form. So a lot of things is people is making promises before they even get on council. Then they get on council, they don't complete the promises to the people, but they complete the promises who give them the most money, or the corporations, or whatever the case may be. But like I said, I'm not trying to point out anything. This is what we have seen before, and until somebody actually stop this, it's going to happen again.
One thing I also wanted to mention, one of the things that I haven't been very vocal about this, but this is something that I've planned to do if elected, is, we have staff, or we will have staff. And I think that staff is, supposed to help us with administrative things, but also be an extension of like ourselves. So obviously a council member can't be in all places at once. And one of the things that I would be doing is making sure that, hey, I can't attend these community council meetings this week. One of my staff members, however, will be there just to listen, not to, take over, but just to listen, hear your concerns, and report those back to me. Like, I would literally keep track of, who attends what community council meeting, and set a goal each month for here's how many community council meetings that either myself personally or my staff will attend, so that those councils know that they have my ear and my support. But then also
important.
What was that?
That's important, because we had a council person who I won't name who did. They were not able to, like you said, be in more places at once. But they did send one of their staff to each of our meetings. And for us, it was almost like, okay, you hear us, you see us, and not that we needed, anything expedited, but I think it gave us direct contact with that council person, and it helped us get some things in motion and get some things done. And recently we've seen with us calling out council that they have been sending people to our council meetings. And that's one thing that I spoke to last week, is we appreciate that in East Westwood. But for me, if I'm elected on council, that's something that should be a given. It's either I'm at the meetings or I send a person to those meetings, so that you know what's going on in those communities. And that's, I just wanted to say how important that is.
Question, like, this is slightly a call out, but not, like, I'm genuinely just curious. For the increase that you've seen in council members themselves or their staff attending some of these meetings, have any of them been ones who are not up for re-election or election for the first time? So like outgoing council members, have you seen them or their staff?
No, and haven't heard replies from them either.
Okay.
I'm, and I'm not one to be controversial. I don't care about that. I feel like it's important for us to see who really cares. We reached out to all of the council members, and on different issues. And no, none of the outgoing people who are not up for re-election have reached out, responded, or anything. To answer your question, no, they have not.
I mean, I've been to quite a few. I have so much more to go to. I'm not at all of them every week. I try to, rotate so I can try to figure out, what's everybody's problems because obviously each neighborhood has a different issue or whatever the case may be. So I try to, Anyway, see, this is a thing because like I'm not the type of person like Tierra said, like to call out or do anything about anybody in particular. But actions is some things that we have to say. I'm like before I didn't like social media, so I got on social media, to promote things, and I'm currently shining off for that now because there's a lot of things that I'm seeing, about going to different things and. I know my place. I'm not experienced like how some may be, and I don't want to, ruffle any feathers. I may be wrong myself, and I understand that I can't. So until I do, further investigation or get better knowledge about the situations, then I may speak on it. But we have to call out things. We have to speak on things that we know. That's the only way to get things done. Because it's just gonna be a whole cycle. It's gonna keep on going and going and going until somebody, say something about it, do something about it. I mean, the ultimate goal is to do something about it. It's the action. It's to solve the problems. And like you said, well, both of you, and I'm sure Brian can agree, the people that's going out, it's not showing up. And it's funny because a couple years ago, when they was running, you seen them everywhere. And the only people that you see right now is mainly the people that have replaced the other people. Miss Sutherman, Miss Kearney. You even see Steve Gutton at places. I mean, I'm not. I was gonna say another name, but you don't see him. It's like he already. I mean, I seen him once or a couple times, but it seemed like he already. Comfortable. He's comfortable and he already know, what's going to happen in this election for himself.
Yeah.
But, the people that's already been elected before, I don't see them out. Even though if they are up for another election, I don't see them. I feel like people just comfortable.
I've heard him say, "I'm can't wait to get out of here."
I think there's probably an element. Like I honestly don't know how like the summer recess works, if that's kind of like summer break or is that just,
I don't like that.
Is that just
because as soon as they get the budget done, they take off.
Yeah.
And so that actually incentivizes them to rush the budget, because the quicker they get through that budget, if they're done with the budget, hey, there's no more meetings after the budget. When the budget passes, there's no more meetings. So they get 2 months off.
Yeah, that seems pretty excessive.
They finished the budget a week early this year. So that last week of there was no meeting on the 30th of June because they were done with the budget. They just said, well, we don't even need to have a meeting. We finished the people don't need to have any say in what goes on.
And should that continue, I get it. After the budget is passed, take a week off, go take a vacation. Every job, deserves a break. However,
but the budget's not even due till the end of June.
Right. And in addition
but they
to that,
finished it on the 23rd.
Summer is also when we see, crime rising. It's a time where I think our public officials need to be most visible. Even if it's not in the city council meetings, that is the time. Okay, let me go meet with these community councils. Let me go be more present with the community because I'm not as tied down in meetings now.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this 2 months off in the summer. Maybe they ought to take 2 weeks. I mean, how many weeks do you get off, Stacey, in a year?
Well, this is for a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I will add, council is considered part-time. For a full-time job each year, I take 2 weeks off in the summer and a week off in January from the full-time job. And
3 weeks. What about you, KA? How many weeks do you get off in a year?
Well, I'm like I DJ, so whenever somebody call, I go to.
How about you,
There is some slow
Tierra?
times like during like like early February or well, a
You're
lot
a
of
DJ?
yeah
What
yeah.
kind of DJ are you, KA?
Well, I DJ all types of genres. We do weddings. We mainly do weddings. I do clubs every once in a while.
Who was your DJ mentor?
I just learned on my own. I mean, I grew up in music. I was I was rapping. I was doing different
Who are
things.
some of your favorite rappers? I'm gonna interview you now.
My favorite rappers, I like Fabulous. Like Fabulous is probably my greatest one. Other than that, I mean, I listen to a lot of like West Coast stuff, like in Cali. I like that vibe. I mean, New York
Callum.
is cool, but I like the Cali vibes.
Yeah, Tara, how many, like, as far as, vacation per
Oh,
se?
so I'll answer the question. So I work for Omnicare, which is a division of CVS Health. And let me give the pretense, I have worked my way up the corporate ladder. So I get 5 weeks off a year. However, I don't have any days off because even on the days off that I'm off from work, I'm running TND's party room and I'm also managing my property. So I never have a full day off because even when I take time off from my day job, it's to actually do work for one of my other jobs. So I'm going to say never.
Nope, completely understood there. And now running for council, there really are 0 days off. Yeah, completely understood. I keep telling myself, like, I need to get on this ballot because then I will take a day off. And I need a day off.
Fresh breath air, however you say it. That was the weight lifted off my shoulders. I feel like I was so stressed out until I got on the ballot. And I think that exposed another problem that we have in our communities is people not being registered to vote or people not knowing their correct registration status in regards to their address. And so that's a big thing. And I think that the city does not, I'm not gonna blame the city because this is an individual thing that needs to happen. But I think as a candidate, I'm really pushing for people to get out and get registered and to actually get out and vote. So I'm going to really be pushing early voting because there are so many people in our communities who have actually lost faith in our local government. I hear that when I'm talking to people, oh, they're going to put who they want in there. Oh, I don't trust them, so I don't care who's down there. I think that that's something that a lot of the candidates need to really address while they're out canvassing because there are a lot of people, and I know we all have the papers that show us who doors to knock on, but I think it's important for us to knock on all doors if we have the time, because some people have not been voting in the local elections because they seriously and honestly lost faith in our local politics.
What is the percentage of voters that vote in a city council election?
Isn't it like 10%?
How many?
Is it because I know out of the 300,000 it's like 30,000 people? What is it, like 10% or something like that?
Well, in 2017, or I'm only going by 2017, the last city council election, there were 26% of the registered voters that voted. So what that means is 74% of the people did not register. So if you're looking at a neighborhood or a city or a street, you can pretty much count on 75% of those people did not and probably will not vote. So one out of every 4 houses across our city vote. But then you go to certain communities and in entire communities, this may be hard to believe, but in some entire communities, like less than 5 people vote in an entire community in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's true.
So even though it was like 24% of our city, that might mean that 40% of Bond Hill voted, but then up around UC where our students are, it might have been 7%. These are real numbers.
Something that, something that I actually want to hopefully talk to Sheriff McGuffey about is really pushing for re-registration when folks get out of jail. Because, I just spoke to a man in Winton Hills just a couple of weeks ago, I was telling him about the campaign, and he was like, well, you know what, I'm going to stop you there because like, I can't vote for you. It's like, I want to, but I can't. Well, why can't you? It's like, well, I'm an ex-felon. And I was like, you can vote. Like the moment that you step out of your sentence, you can vote. You just need to register. And I got
But
him
you can vote in jail. You can actually vote in jail.
in Ohio. You
There's
can
no
as well.
there's no correlation between
If you-
voting rights and
if you're in there-
incarceration.
If you in jail for a misdemeanor, if you're in jail for a felony, you can't vote while you're in jail. If you're in there for a misdemeanor, you can.
You can vote while you are awaiting sentencing, which most of the people in jail are awaiting sentencing. And so you can definitely vote while you are awaiting sentencing. I'm not saying prison, because at the point when you're in prison, you're not even a resident of Hamilton County, because there's no prisons in Hamilton County. So yeah, if you're literally in prison in Ohio, you can't vote just by means of your location. But it definitely does not strip you of your voting rights just because you're in the Justice Center.
Something that I really want to start pursuing like now is, let's get a system in place. You have probation. This should also be an opportunity where we're helping individuals, get back on their feet as much as possible. And I believe part of that is, hey, you're out now. Let's get you re-registered to vote at the very least as part of like an outreach as they're getting out. And, I'd love to talk to Sheriff McGuffey to see if, something like that would be possible.
But usually, if you're in the Justice Center, you're not in there for a year. So your voter registration should not be, okay. So when they purge your voter registration, that's normally when you haven't voted in several elections, like several presidential elections. They shouldn't purge you for just missing an election. That's not the policy. So you shouldn't be stripped of your voting rights just because you're in jail for 6 months at the Justice Center. Basically, there's nobody serving out terms that I've ever heard of that are longer than a year at the Justice. If you're serving a year, you're riding out of the Justice Center in a bus.
Doesn't just hearing the words like stripped of your voting rights, like, doesn't that just sound disgusting?
Crazy.
Well, in some states, being a felon does strip you of your voting rights, but Ohio is not one of them.
And a lot of people don't know that. We have a lot of
in fact, the prisoners are told upon their release, they're literally told that you can't vote. They tell them that.
Which is what
which is a lie.
Change. Mm-hmm.
Which is a lie. But one thing that you mentioned actually that I think we should talk to Charmaine about is that that everyone inside of that Justice Center should be offered an absentee ballot. Because they have about roughly 1,400 inmates at any given time. And, the last election, the difference between 9 and 10, the person that won and the person that didn't was only 257 votes. So actually 1,400 people could shift an election.
No, I would completely agree with that.
Come on, let's go get them.
Two things to email Charmaine McGuffey about tonight. Let's get voter registration as people are, exiting the system, and the absentee ballots, I think, is a fantastic idea.
Well, there's also prison release. There's a lot of other kind of like jail-ish places. There's like, what is it? 1510, what is that address? 1610, I forget. Anyway, Reading Road, which is the Talbert House technically, but basically it's a jail, and there's a lot of people locked up in there as well, over on Spring Grove also. Mm-hmm. So I think we could make to Tiara's point earlier, talking about registering and getting disenfranchised people to vote. There are 9,000, well, anyway, somewhere between 6,000 and 9,000 people per year that experience homelessness on our streets. Any given night, there are 1,000 people literally in shelters in Cincinnati. So these kind of numbers, I know I represent the non-voter, You know, I represent the homeless. I represent the disenfranchised. I represent the people who literally don't vote. You know, some council members or some people running, you know, they just want to represent one type of person who they know is going to vote. But I think that we, as a group here, a little group that we've got here tonight, we could make a push to get the disenfranchised, the people experiencing homelessness, and the people, you know, experiencing, you know, issues that are in jail. We could, or into recovery, you know, drug addiction and recovery, these recovery houses and so on. That would be enough, because all those people that I just mentioned put together is thousands and thousands of votes. I mean, even between like the vote of number 9 and then maybe all the way down to like 15, you know, like the 15th person or 18th person down, the amount of votes that separates them is probably about 5,000 votes. So it would really,
every vote is a voice. You know, I try to be very conscious about my language when I'm talking about, you know, going and knocking on doors. Like, I'm not just talking to voters, I'm talking to residents. You know, if someone's talking to me and they're like, you know, I'm not registered to vote, like, great, good for you. I still want to hear your ideas. Like, I still want to know
bring
what's
that voter
working
registration form or have them register online. Right.
I have been doing that. I was just talking to someone today. They're like, I'm not registered, and I sent them a link. It's not too late. Speaking of late,
pull out your phone and register.
Speaking of late, we are running out of time. So what I'll do is give everyone a minute or so to, you know, tell about your website, any events that you have coming up next, and how people can reach you, or to just, you know, pitch why people should vote for you in November. So we'll do it popcorn style. I'll pass it first to Mr. Hurd. Go ahead and give us your closing argument.
All right, real quick, I did want to make a quick comment about what you said earlier about the barriers about the marijuana. Legalize it. We already did in 2019. You talk about it's not enough funding for the program to to get it expungements off of, I believe, off of 18,000 people were supposed to. But anyway, we're going to have to go ahead and do that. Let's bring unity. Let's make sure that we get out here, talk to as many people as possible. Great work. I love being around all you guys. Every time is a pleasure seeing you all. I am K.A. Hurd Jr. And I just want to have more transparency, have more accountability and unity into our city. And I'm running for the 2021 Cincinnati City Council. You can find my website. It's Stay Heard Committee. StayHeardCommittee.weebly.com. And I approve that message.
Very good. Miss Powell.
I had to take myself off of mute. My daughter was talking to me. So my website is powforcincy.com. One thing that I hope that the people that watch this video and all of the residents in the city do is give all of us newcomers a chance. In canvassing, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I've never heard of you. Oh, you know, this, that, and the third. And I think that people need to be open-minded. Stacey, I know somebody commented on one of your posts saying, oh, none of the people have a chance because they don't have any major endorsements. I think that people need to really be open-minded this election, because those major endorsements have not gotten the city anywhere thus far. So I just want voters to be open-minded to the candidates that are out there. Do your research on all of us. I feel like most of us are everywhere. I always call some of y'all my campaign cousins because we're always in the same place. I really just hope that people get behind candidates that they can relate to and that they know will represent them. Like I stated, I'm a mom, I'm a small business owner, I'm a landlord. I've worked my way through corporate. I grew up on the West Side. I come from a single parent home. And I just hope that people, all of us are different. All of us represent something different. I hope that people really get behind the candidates that they know will support their lifestyle and support them, and vote that way and not just simply down the slates. But once again, powforcincy.com.
All right, Mr. Gary.
Well, let's see, closing remarks. I would just say we need to look at the direction of our city. the direction that it has been going, and ask ourselves to play that tape through. So if, the Native Americans, when they would take an action, they would ask themselves, how is this not only going to affect me and my children and my grandchildren, but how is it going to affect 7 generations down the line? And I think if we only look 1 generation down the line, 20 years, what is Cincinnati going to look like if we stay on the track that we're on? We need to think about, what is the track that we're on? The track that we are on, our mayor calls it the comeback city. We need to think about what that comeback looks like for the bulk of the people in the city. The average income in our city is about $28,000 per year. That means half of the people in our city make less than $14 an hour, basically. Half the city makes less than that. About a quarter of our city makes about the equivalent of $6 per hour. You can't survive. You can't raise a family. It's not sustainable. We have to think about our future, and the way to think about our future is to think about our youth. Again, we are investing in 97% of our funding. We are investing in luxury condos and luxury apartments. If we continue on this track, we are going to see here in the next couple of days, when the census numbers for the 2020 census are released, we are going to see a reduction in the African-American population of our city. We've already known that in the past 15 years, every year, we've had a reduction in the African-American population in our city. We're talking about thousands of people. We're a city of 300,000 people, and we've lost already close to 5% of our African-American population. We're going to see a couple more percentage points come off of that in the next few days. And why? Why is our Black population dwindling? Because of white policies, because of policies by city council members who want to protect only one type of people. They want to support and protect. And when you look at the numbers of businesses that we're supporting and the race of those businesses, when you look at the subsidies of the developers and the type of developments that they're making, when you look at the numbers of homes that are being torn down, of homes that are being subsidized by the Port Authority and other agencies, you will see that these policies are benefiting mainly wealthy and white people. This is a problem, because this is not how you create one Cincinnati. This is not how you create equality. In essence, what it is white supremacy playing itself out in our neighborhoods. The West Side, they have a plan for that. You know they have a plan for that? They have a plan for that. You can see, drive up and down Madison Road, Madisonville, they had a plan for that. You know what the Black population is in Madisonville right now? It's about 40%. You know, when I grew up, what the Black population of Madisonville was a predominantly African-American community. Avondale, just 20 years ago, do you know how many people lived in Avondale? 20,000 people. You know how many, I live right by Richie's Chicken near the zoo. You know what the population of Avondale is now? It's about 10,000, 11,000 people. They've been losing 500 people per year. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go on and on and on. But what I'm asking us to do as a people is to play the tape through. If we continue down the track that we're going, where are we going to arrive? I believe that all people are created equal. And I believe that they have certain inalienable rights. The right to life, the pursuit of happiness. And what we have done is we've created a situation where certain people don't have those rights in the city because they can no longer live here because we're pricing people out. I'll leave it at that. We can change that. These are human policies. These are city policies, and we need new policies for our city.
And where can people find more information about your campaign if they are interested?
Thank you, Stacey. BrianGarry.com, BrianGarry, BrianGarry.com.
Very good. And, as for me, I have many ideas. I know that, I sound like a one-trick horse, constantly talking about mental health.
But you have to be authentic and be you, and that's what's important to you.
Absolutely. And you need someone to go in and focus primarily on it because not everyone else is going to. We need someone to do just that for a few years to get ahead of the game. And I'm prepared to do that. But in addition to that, I also want to make sure that we have an equitable environment for children to grow up in, that we're investing in youth, that our communities are heard. And I have plans for each and all of these things. So if you want to hear more about my campaign, it's staceysmithccc.wordpress.com, and Stacey is with an E. But thank you to the panelists tonight, including Jackie, who had to leave a little bit early. Thank you all so much for joining. This will be on YouTube by the end of the night, and I'll send it to each of you. You can slice it up and dice it up however you want to. If you want to use it as promotional material, please feel free to. But again, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for joining, and see you on the campaign trail.
Thank you, guys. Honored to be here with you. Thank you, guys.
Likewise. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, have a good night. Much love to all y'all and y'all families.
Thank you, KA. Much love to you as well.